This was a silly idea. My friend Arvid got the Chaos Dwarf spearhead box for Age of Sigmar. That's the Helsmiths of Hashut, to all you young'uns. This is not the silly idea. It's a pretty great idea, actually. I asked if we should paint them together. Arvid said we could do it in 24 hours. I said I'm old and I need my sleep. 12 hours is better. That was the silly idea. But if one is lucky, there's always a but. Perhaps it's not the gimmick I thought it was. And maybe I'd learn something. I learned that preparation is key, if you ever want to do this kind of thing. So before we met up, I wanted to make sure we had a plan. Arvid had assembled the minis, but they needed a bit of basing. These vertically challenged angry men compensating by use of tall hats and a lot of time spent at the barbers like to destroy things. They want to conquer, strip the land of whatever it's worth to feed their machines and greed. Sounds awfully familiar. So a desolate wasteland kind of vibe would be nice on the base. Nothing fancy, but some rocks out of cork bark, texture paste, some stones and bricks. The obligatory skull here and there. It is Warhammer, after all. I then primed everything black, and while waiting for that to settle in, I started to sketch out a color scheme. See, part 2 of this challenge is that Arvid also got a set of paints, dark arts by 2 thin coats. We decided to only use this set of paints for this challenge. The set looks like a Zorn palette-inspired grim dark paint set. Mostly regular opaque paints, but also a few metallics and inks. I painted out all the paints on a piece of paper, not only for my own reference, but labeled with the numbering of the actual bottle's serial number. This is a great reference when working fast and looking for a specific paint. Now, we had already agreed on using a yellow as the thematic color for the army, but I loosely sketched out the entire scheme digitally, testing a few different ideas and then sent it over to Arvid for approval. Now, to make this scheme workable swiftly, trying to paint it over black would be silly because of the yellow. Yellow doesn't like going over black. I needed something else as a base. I used one of the Infernal Cohort minis as a test model and gave it a kind of Zenithal prime, first with the very dark burgundy, brown, reddish, nice warm base for the darker colors and to help the next step. The French kind of mustard yellow that I then tried to get mostly on the top of the model. Using only the yellow would probably have given me too much of a green vibe if sprayed straight on the black. I then painted up the model with the paints I digitally sketched out to see if this would actually work out in real life. Simple base coat layers. I think the scheme looks rather cool. The dark warm metallic is a treat. The yellow ochre is a great sort of eye-catching army theme that works well on the table. The green complements the yellow, and the burgundy and orange details create a rather weird triad thing. Gives everything a bit of personality. The white beard is a good tabletop trick as well. Gives the miniature a nice bright center that catches the eye when everything is a few feet away on the table. Now, the fact that we didn't have any washes was a bit of a conundrum. For painting fast, washes are kind of a godsend. So I cheated and made some sort of washes by mixing speed paint medium with the inks. This is predominantly for the metallics and the yellow, but also something to use to cover up mistakes. For the metallics, I used just the black ink and speed paint mix. I also realized I could make a very nice grim dark gold by using the tobacco ink on top of silver metallics. The yellow got a bit of a witch's brew of tobacco and warm brown. The red and green could pretty much be left as they are. I could then move on to highlights. This I figured would be an optional step once we started the 12-hour channel. I mean, honestly, the washes could be optional. As long as we get past the base coats, we're kind of winning. I did, however, have a kind of speedy approach, not timing myself, but trying to just paint efficiently and without remorse. Then, to balance all this out, a wintry base would be great. We got a fair bit of warm colors happening on the miniature itself, so a contrasting cool base would make everything look distinct, to really sell that warm yellow. A cool tone of the opposing spectrum will help. Also, if we do a desolated frosty look, we can add some snow effects. This might sound like an unnecessary additional step, but an effect like snow or dust or whatever means the base itself does not have to be perfectly painted because you can hide the imperfections with the effect paste. And there we have it, the test mini. I think it looks pretty rad. An unusual color scheme, but with character and personality. To me, it looks like something that would work on an entire army and still be fun to look at, vibrant enough to make the minis pop on the table. So with that settled, I could now go ahead and give all the miniatures that dark burgundy to mustard yellow Zenithal Prime, and they'd all be ready to go. But the preparations don't stop there. On painting day, I set up everything I could imagine would be needed. A painting area with good lights, water, paper towels, extra brushes and palettes. I had all the paints shaken, the reference mini painted. Already had the reference sheet with all the paints labeled. Again, so handy when you're in the zone and go, I need a bright yellow, and don't have to spend time doing guesswork. Also the soul food, sugar and coffee and that. Having to go out and buy snacks while painting means losing out on time. This is all like preparing for a game night or something. Everything was looking good. There was, of course, the obligatory car problems. Our we should start by 9 in the morning got pushed forward to pretty much 11. But finally, the heroes arrived, Arvid and Clara, and we're off. Well, we did take a little time to go through the paint job I had done, write down what paints I used, and added that to our paint reference sheet. This is now entering the painting machine. The cogs are well oiled, everything is calibrated. Also, the brain doesn't have to get involved and say it's bored or tired or wants to go home. The best approach was to start painting from inside and working out, starting with the hard-to-reach areas, in this case the green. Then move on to metallics so that the metallic paint mistakes can be covered by future layers of paint. Then move on to the yellow and the red and so on. There's 15 little guys, all who more or less feature the same scheme and approach. But there's also 2 jokers, the cannon and the large mechanical bull. I figured not airbrushing these with metallics would be silly. They had already been part of the initial Zenithal Prime batch, so I masked off whatever was not metallic and then sprayed on metallic paint. Now, just to display some painting speed skills, the other 2 had already pretty much zapped through most of the green while I fiddled with masking and airbrush clogs. It's going to be the story of the day, pretty much. I think when painting like this, with an aim to get a lot done together with others, it's kind of important to let everyone do what they're good at or feel comfortable with. I'm not great at painting neat base coats fast. Arvid is. Clara is maybe a bit like me, doing the same thing over and over again gets boring, so she started to focus more and more on the sort of one-off miniatures. The little hobgrots, the standard bearer, the musician. All that required more in the way of alternative color schemes than the rest. Arvid just fired on with the base coats at lightning speed. I thought I was great at wet blending fire. I was actually off to a good start, but then I started taking things too far. What if I airbrush on some dark blue glow? What if I use that white ink to create a bright light leak from the innards? Well, my tip is, in a situation like this, it's not a time for experimentation. Only do what you've done before and know how to do. I was messing up, redoing things. In the end, I said to the others, this is just getting worse. Set a timer for 10 minutes and then it will have to be done regardless of what it looks like. If I would just have started with a much simpler approach or even just left it at the very first wet blend, it would have looked a lot better than what it does now. But to cheer things up, Magnus showed up. We were now 4 brush warriors and nothing could stand in our way. I used a sponge for the smoke on the bull, got my revenge there, kick-ass smoke in minutes. Clara was doing some fine work on her special selection, and Arvid and Magnus were already on the highlights step. Not quite sure how that happened really, I'd missed even done the washes. It's amazing what just one more hand will do. I mean, it's a pretty skilled hand, but still. I took the 2 big pieces all the way to done. Getting those all out of the way would feel good. A little sense of completion goes a long way. The fire just doesn't look done, but it got the time. And sometimes that is all one can get out of a session like this. It's got paint on, so it's winning. The rest is simplistic, but enough to look good on the table as a piece of an army. The other guys were, I guess, halfway through the highlights with Details still missing, like skin, little pouches, all the little stuff you just leave when painting, like you're on a factory floor. It was then time for well-deserved dinner. I guess comments on whatever is going on with that pizza down below. Yes, there seems to be salad and fries. And well, some sort of indistinct meat. Oh, and was there garlic dip? I think there was. Whatever fuel these guys need is good stuff in my books. I then took up what I felt I could do okay in a situation like this. Skin. A sort of very pale, almost green skin, something that contrasts better than a warm skin tone. I then moved on to wet blending bases and base details. I was starting to realize that this whole thing was maybe not the gimmick I thought it would be. First off, I got to hang out with friends for a day to paint miniatures. There's no gimmick in that. And us all working on the same miniatures meant this all turned into a sort of communal experience. We're creating something together. And as the bottom line is to get done and not immaculate results, there's no discussion whatsoever on how things should be done to achieve a certain level of painterly looks. You just take up whatever task that needs to get done, and everyone is happy when that task is completed. Cheering each other on for a job well done, because it got done. This is, of course, based on the people around, but also because of the situation created. The bottom line, as long as we get paint on, is a pretty great viewpoint. And we were getting paint on. Before we knew it, black rims were being painted. Apart from the communal experience, getting together like this can be a great way to help someone out. Say you have a friend who actually doesn't like painting miniatures, but still wants a painted army on the table. Or you've had that army for ages, but it just doesn't get done, but it sure would be nice to not have all that grey plastic staring at you. Setting up a challenge like this can be a great way to get paint on. Honestly, just seeing an army get done, something that in the past has taken me years at worst, is a great feeling. We got done in 12 hours. By the end, maybe even a bit earlier. There was even time for Magnus to give some extra love to the gems in the boss's beard. And then there was the brushes being conditioned. Kind of feels like sharpening your sword after a battle. Paints getting packed away, palettes cleaned. By the end, we were waiting for Clara, who at the last minute decided to paint a freehand on the banner. A rather brave thing to do last minute, but she pulled it off wickedly in like 5 minutes. And the army was complete. None of us were falling over. There had been no stopwatches. We had eaten, some of us more suspiciously than others. And we talked, listened to music, and just had an overall good time. A long hangout, not a YouTube gimmick. If you try something like this, I actually think it is something to try, well then, I think preparation is key. Be clear on what paints to use, where they're supposed to be going. Using less paints is great. Using a set like we did, not even using all the paints, narrowed our choices, and that required less brain work. I think this was a fun set of paints, by the way. Personally, I would have removed what feels like some very similar colors and maybe added a few more choices. I think a sort of pastel blue would have been a great complement to the set, as well as an ink in the blue spectrum. Anyway, we had a great time, and the army looks good, and thank you for following along. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. I'd also quickly like to plug my Patreon. It's what keeps this channel afloat. Please check the Patreon out if you'd like to support me in making more videos. The Patreon is completely transparent, so you can see what I make and deem if that is a good enough monthly wage for what I do. As thanks, you get access to the 52 Minutes Discord community, and of course, eternal peace of mind and all of that. See you in the next one. Bye.